Would you look at the time? It's tier list o'clock, folks. Welcome back to another video of this style. The video essays are coming back once the season wraps up. I got plenty of ideas. I'm excited for this off season, but I've been having a lot of fun with these. You guys are enjoying them, so I thought, why not do one more? And in honor of the World Series being this week, World Series MVPs. Every World Series MVP ranked since the year 2000. I've got 5 tiers here. This one at the top is gonna be tight. I actually think I'm only going to put one hitter and one pitcher here. Most valuable MVP, most valuable player. Made sense in my brain when I wrote it. They lose the World Series without him. Pretty straightforward. I don't think he's the best of the best, but assuredly his team would drop the World Series without his efforts. Would be better with a close series. These guys might have had, pretty terrific performances, but because it was a 4-game set or a 5-game set, even because of their performance, it doesn't hold as much weight, because imagine if they had those extra games, they could have done even more damage. Someone's got to win it, right? Yeah, this is for, when it's kind of a toss-up or it's a player who didn't have a superb performance, but it's an award they give out every year, so they got to give it to somebody. I forgot that you won World Series MVP. Again, kind of straightforward, and I'm sorry to anyone that falls here, but when I went through the list, there were a couple guys that I was like, really? We've got Derek Jeter, number 1, and I'm instantly going to put this one in would be better with a close series. Jeter hit a robust 409 with a 1.344 OPS. When I look up at the top 10 plays of this World Series determined by CWPA, which is championship winning percentage added, he actually, he doesn't pop up, but he did have some pretty iconic moments in this series, of course. So I'm going to put him in the middle tier because it's significant to complete the Yankees dynasty, but probably would have been better if Jeter had a couple more games to play with and maybe even improved upon that 400 batting average. Pablo Sandoval in 2012. I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't remember this one. I forgot that you won World Series MVP, but I'm gonna put it there for now. Let's go look at the numbers. So in this series, Pablo goes 8 for 16 with 3 home runs, so a 500 batting clip, a 1.6 OPS. He certainly earned the honors. Of course, he had the multi-homer game against Justin Verlander, which takes the number 1 and number 4 spots on the CWPA leaderboard for this series. Most of the Giants pitching staff handled the work from here on. 2-0 final, another 2-0 final, and then a 4-3 game. So it feels bad that Pablo's down here, but I don't necessarily think the Giants lose this World Series without his efforts. In fact, I think they win it just fine, even if he's not there. And it feels wrong to put him in someone's got to win it, right? Because he fully earned it. I'm thinking maybe I'm going to put him in would be better with a close series. I might move him down because, in all honesty, if you asked me before I prepped this video who won the 2012 World Series MVP, I might have thrown up my hands. David Eckstein in 2006. This one is firmly going in the bottom tier. I love David Eckstein, scrawny white guy middle infielder. That's like my bread and butter. Those were all my favorite players when I was a kid. Eckstein in the series, he hit 364, 8 for 22 in the series. No extra base hits, but 4 RBIs and a couple clutch hits there. Not really the offensive output that you'd expect to kind of jump off the page. He did have the biggest impact hit in the series, his RBI double in the 8th inning of a tied game. It's honestly his game 4 performance that probably propels him to win this award. In this game, at one point, the Tigers were up 3-0. Eckstein scores the tying run in the 7th inning and then helps bring home the winning run in the 8th inning with another double. So for that performance, yes, he was key in them winning game 4, but outside of game 4, it's not an amazing series for David Eckstein. And honestly, I'm surprised this didn't go to another 2006 Cardinal. And I forgot that he won World Series MVP, so it fits there perfectly. Hideki Matsui in 2009, they would lose the World Series without his efforts. This dude lived up to his nickname in 2009 against the Phillies. Godzilla was alive and well in this World Series. This might be one of the best World Series stat lines ever. He goes 8 for 13, which is a 615 batting average in 6 games, and of course 3 home runs along the way. His game 6 performance really propels this whole thing. He hit a pair of home runs off Pedro Martinez. He was the sole driving force in the offense that propelled the Yankees to win the series in 6 games. Hideki went 3 for 4 with 6 RBIs in the clinching game here. It's a game that maybe the Phillies can sneak away with. With Hideki in the lineup, this was the Yankees' victory all the way. And who knows, if the Phillies win that game 6, maybe they win the game 7 too without Hideki Matsui wreaking havoc, and maybe your Yankees lose the World Series. So I think Hideki fits perfectly up there. David Ortiz in 2013, he's going to go right next to Godzilla. He was a monster in that series as well. Lots of good choices in this one, but remember when I said Hideki Matsui's stat line might have been the best ever in a World Series? This one by Papi is the same, if not better. He hit 688 with 8 walks in 16 at-bats, which is absurd. Papi's biggest hit in this series was a 2-run homer he hit in game 2, which is shockingly one of the games that the Red Sox lost, but his fingerprints are all over this series, and you look up and down at the offensive numbers, and his are far and away the best. Personally, this is a tough one because Jon Lester was equally as good. 15 in the third innings of 1 earned run ball and 2 wins in the series. He easily could have won this award as well, but they were both key in the Red Sox winning this series. All right, we got the 2001 co-MVPs of Randy Johnson and Curt Schilling. If it was one of them, I would put this at the top, but I think I'm going to put it in the second tier. I know I just said that like Jon Lester could have been a co-MVP, but I don't really like the concept of the co-MVP. This performance epitomizes the fact that they would not have won the World Series without them. 21 in the third innings from Curt Schilling with a 1.69 ERA. Randy Johnson gets 3 wins in the series because he comes in relief of the final game. He also had an ERA that began with a 1. The Diamondbacks had a couple blowout wins, which does inflate some of the offensive stats you'll see in their box score, but everyone knows deep down it was the pitching performances that got the Diamondbacks their World Series ring. And you know what? I guess it is pretty hard to just pick one of these guys to be MVP, but it does diminish them from the top spot since it is a combined effort. So I'm going to put them in they lose the World Series without them because it's just a fact. Stephen Strasburg in 2019. For now, I'm going to put him in the second tier, but I can already see our second tier is getting a little crowded. His end numbers don't land in a spot where you think he's as dominant, but with Patrick Corbin becoming kind of a long reliever for the Nationals, his starts became that much more important as sort of the head of this rotation. In fact, he's actually second on the pitching staff in championship winning percentage added to Patrick Corbin, especially because of Corbin's performance in Game 7 where he gave them 3 shutout innings. The only thing is I think Strasburg is especially key in the series because he provided them wins in turning point games of the series. The second game at Minute Maid where the Nationals had won the first one by a narrow margin, and then Game 6 when their entire season was on the line down 3-2. Strasburg goes 6 innings, 2 earned runs in the Game 2 effort, and then 8 in a third innings, 2 runs in the Game 6 effort. Those starts stand out to me as the most important by any pitcher in this series because the Nationals don't get the opportunity to make this miracle run happen if they don't win these clutch turning point games. If they lose Game 2 and then drop the 3 at home, the series ends in DC. If they drop Game 6, they don't get the chance to come back in Game 7 and have that Howie Kendrick magic moment. Stephen Strasburg enables all of this to happen. So yeah, he's going to stay in that second tier because of where the end numbers land, because you're going to see some truly alien numbers going forward, but don't forget Stephen Strasburg in 2019. Jorge Soler in 2021. I got some guff last time because I put the Soler home run and pimp job in my lowest tier, my shrug tier. Soler's big moments in this series are obviously that 3-run home run and a tie-breaking home run in Game 4 that helped the Braves win that game as well. Do the Braves win the World Series without Jorge Soler? Maybe. I think it's hard to imagine them, taking home Game 6 with all that momentum without that big home run in the first inning, but also they got tons of really good offensive performances between Freddie Freeman, Austin Riley, Travis d'Arnaud, Adam Duvall had a grand slam in this series too. That Braves lineup was firing on all cylinders. And the series was 6 games and decently close with some pretty narrow margins of victory. I'm contemplating between the third and the fourth tier. The fourth tier feels a little disrespectful and I feel bad about it. I'm going to change the name of this tier, I think. I'm going to change it to would be better if your team stunk a little more. Because the 21 Braves lineup is pretty good, and I think that does overshadow Jorge Soler's performance, but he did have 3 go-ahead home runs in this series. Like, all 3 of those home runs were impactful. And I kind of think Corey Seager fits into that category kind of perfectly. Seager led his team in hits, and he batted 400 in the series with a pair of home runs. He had a really good series, but look at some of the offensive numbers we have for the Dodgers here. Mookie Betts also had 2 home runs and hit well. Max Muncy had a 900 OPS. Justin Turner was second on the team in most of these categories and was just as effective. This was a really good Dodgers lineup. Honestly, part of my heart wanted this to go to Clayton Kershaw because it was kind of his redemption tour in the World Series. He won 2 games in the series, pitched the best he ever has in a postseason series. And Seager's biggest winning percentage added moment was in Game 4, where he provided the Dodgers the lead for them to blow it in the 9th inning on an even clutcher moment from Brett Phillips. So I obviously didn't forget that Corey Seager won World Series MVP. Spoiler alert, he's won it twice, and we're going to talk about the other one, but I think he belongs in the 4th tier here. I also want to change this tier name because I don't like it. I'm going to say it would be better if your team wasn't so damn good. So good. Edgar Renteria in 2010 for your San Francisco Giants. He obviously had the big home run in this series, the Game 5 3-run shot off Cliff Lee in the 7th inning. When I think back to the series, I can't really remember anything else he did besides that moment, but sometimes that's what the award comes down to, who had the biggest moment. Looking back, he was easily the best offensive player on the team with a pair of home runs, the most hits of any player on the Giants. The thing for me is that when I think of the 2010 Giants, I think of the pitching performances, not so much the offensive performances. The Giants scored 20 runs in the first 2 games and held the Rangers to 2 runs or less in the final 4 games of the series. Renteria's home run in game 2 of the series broke the ice in that game and helped the Giants to run up the score and eventually win that one by a wide margin. But the Giants just simply outplayed the Rangers by a ton, and I think that he was the biggest bright spot on the offense, but it was so clear that the pitching came together as a dominant unit to just handle the Rangers. I'm going to put this one in would be better with a close series. Corey Seager on the Rangers last year. You know, we've been talking a lot of smack about the 2023 World Series lately. We need to give Corey Seager last year his due. Corey Seager goes 6 for 21 in this series, 3 home runs, 6 RBIs, and of course, the biggest one being that game 1 home run off Paul Sewald when they were down 5-3 to tie the game, send it to extras, and set up the Adolis Garcia home run. Seager also homered in game 3 to put the team ahead 3-0 on the road, and in game 4, he had another big 2-run homer to put them up 5-0. They almost blew that game because the D-backs came back at the end, but they won that game 11-7. All 3 of those home runs were pretty impactful, and for a pretty babyface Rangers team, for a lot of the younger guys, they needed someone like Corey Seager to step up in those big moments and be the veteran leader on the team, a guy that won World Series MVP before. Who knows, if the Rangers don't win game 1, and they certainly don't without that Seager home run, the entire series could look a lot different and maybe have been more competitive. So you can make the argument that this would be better with a close series, but I think that this was Corey Seager's magnum opus of his clutch performances, and I'm going to put it in the higher tier. George Springer. Springer hits 5 home runs in the series. He walks 5 times, hits 3 doubles. He had so many impactful hits. Obviously, the biggest one is that game 5 home run to tie the game once again in that 13-12 gauntlet. He also had an incredibly clutch home run in the 11th inning of game 2 to put the Astros ahead by 2 runs, which is a game they'd win on the road. I'm going to put this one in would be better if your team wasn't so good, because the team was really good because they were cheating, so like that stinks. And I'm not going to put a 2017 Astros instance any higher because I don't want that controversy in the comments, but I know you guys are going to bring it anyway. Cole Hamels in 2008, I forgot that you won World Series MVP. This was one of the ones where I was thinking, who won it for the Phillies? Was it Jimmy Rollins? Was it Ryan Howard? Was it Pat Burrell? No, it was Cole Hamels. And when I look back at the box score, I'm shocked that it wasn't Ryan Howard. He hit 3 home runs in the series. His moments are the ones I remember the most. And Hamels did fine in this series. He pitched 2 games, 13 innings, 4 runs allowed. You take that to the bank, you're really happy with that. But remember when we talked about John Lester from the 2013 World Series? 15 innings, 1 earned run, 2 wins. You didn't win World Series MVP. Part of this is definitely that Hamels wins the first game of the series on the road in a tight 3-2 win, and then he comes back and he wins the clinching game in game 5, outdueling Scott Kazmir. So I get his lasting impact as the bookmark starter of this series, but I forgot that he won, man. I'm not even gonna lie. The Phillies Braves agenda, it's running rampant, guys. I'm so sorry. Troy Gloss in 2002. The Angels are always weird because this was a team without a star. With that being said, they would not have won this World Series without his efforts. Troy Gloss collected an absurd 10 hits in the 7-game series, 3 doubles, 3 homers, 8 RBIs. In terms of who had the most clutch impact, you can make a compelling argument for Garrett Anderson as the most clutch player of this series, but honestly, I'm shocked that Gloss's 2-run double in game 6 isn't the highest clutch event on this entire list. The Giants went up 5-0 in the 7th inning, up 3-2 in the series, and then in a 5-4 game in the 8th inning, 2 men on, nobody out, Gloss comes through, puts one in the gap, puts the Angels ahead, and they lock down that win, and then the night after, they win that game as well. I do think of Gloss as the leader of this offense, even though they had solid contributors across the board, like Darren Erstad and Garrett Anderson, but I think without that game 6 hit, they could go down there, they could lose the series, so they lose the World Series without him, he goes in that top tier. Manny Ramirez in 04. Manny's slash line is awesome. He hits .412 in the series, just the 1 home run, but 7 hits overall for the all-time postseason home run king. I think I'm going to move this down. It would be better if your team wasn't so good, because the 2004 Red Sox were so good. If you want to talk pitching, they got scoreless efforts from Derek Lau, Pedro Martinez, and Curt Schilling in the series, plus Keith Folk was a monster as the closer. And on the hitting side of things, Manny actually has the 3rd best OPS on his own team. Would be better if your team wasn't so damn good. Salvador Perez in 2015. I think this one will go into would be better with a close series. This was a 5-game set with a ton of contributors, especially on the pitching side for the Royals. Sal led his team in hits with 8. He had 2 doubles, 2 RBIs, and an 846 OPS. Whereas when you look at the pitching, you had Johnny Cueto with a complete game, and then Kelvin Herrera, Luke Hochevar, Wade Davis, and Ryan Madsen combined to pitch 22 innings without a single earned run allowed. Can you give a World Series MVP to a bullpen? Because that's what I would have done. I think this one is a product of just a lot of key contributors and no one really standing out as the best player on the team, because that's what the 2015 Royals were. They were just like a team effort through and through. I'm going to leave it at would be better with a close series, because who knows what Sal might have done with a game 6 and a game 7. Maybe you would have added to the resume. Jermaine Dye in 05. I forgot that you won World Series MVP, man. I'm sorry. I love Jermaine Dye. But when you think of the 05 World Series and those close games, you think of the pitching. And especially after the way they robbed Joe Creedy in the ALCS when he was so clearly the MVP of that series, they also didn't give it to him here when he led the team in home runs and was 2nd second in OPS. What I've learned about World Series MVPs is that if you're a starter and you don't get at least 2 games, you're probably not going to win it, even if you have a great performance like John Garland or Freddie Garcia. But yeah, when you think of the clutch moments in that series, you don't really think of Jermaine Dye. You think of Paul Konerko's grand slam, Scott Podsednik's walk-off home run, and even Jeff Blum's go-ahead home run in Game 3 in extra innings at Minute Maid Park. Jermaine Dye doesn't really come to the forefront of my brain, even if he was absolutely terrific in the series. So yeah, kind of a victim of his team being really good, but I honestly didn't even remember who won it. Mad Bum, 2014. Most valuable MVP. No doubt in my mind, this one goes straight to the top. In a series where these teams kind of just traded blowouts up into a very fun last game, Madison Bumgarner was the constant dominant factor. 21 innings, 1 earned run allowed, 17 strikeouts to 10 base runners. He tosses 7 innings of 1-run ball in Game 1 to lock up that win. In Game 5, he goes the distance and pitches a complete game shutout to get that win. But easily the most clutch performance of all after a short outing by Tim Hudson, Madison Bumgarner comes in the 5th inning and pitches the rest of the game for the Giants. 5 shutout innings, 2 hits, no walks, 4 strikeouts for the longest save I've ever seen. It is so obvious that the 2014 Giants don't get their 3rd ring without the effort of Madison Bumgarner, and his entire career after this season, because of how many innings he threw in that postseason, changes. But it's for the greater good of winning the World Series. This performance solidifies him as the greatest postseason pitcher of all time. He is the most valuable MVP. Ben Zobrist in 2016. This one's tough. Zobrist leads the team with 10 hits. He obviously has the clutch go-ahead double in Game 7 and extra innings. Kyle Schwarber comes back in this series and hits really well. Rizzo goes for the highest OPS on the team, above 1,000. Chris Bryant hits a pair of home runs. Like, this whole team was really good. Kyle Hendricks was also superb in this series. He might have been a pick that I went with. I don't know, man. The more I outline the things that could have been in this series, the more I think would be better if your team wasn't so good. Not to slack Ben Zobrist. He won back-to-back World Series with those Royals and these Cubs, and I do think that his hit was absolutely key to them winning the series, but the 2016 Cubs, I don't think they were carried solely by Ben Zobrist, although he was very important to their victory. Mike Lowell in 2007 would be better if your team wasn't so damn good. They did make the 3-1 comeback in the ALCS, but the 2007 Red Sox really just steamrolled their way to a World Series win. Lowell didn't even lead the team in hits. He did have a clutch home run in Game 4, but Jacoby Ellsbury was the team's hit leader and average leader. I do think that if either one of Josh Beckett or John Lester, who had just come back from beating cancer, got another start in this series, it would have been one of them, but when you sweep, all your starters go once. Lowell definitely comes up with some clutch hits, like his RBI double in Game 2 that helped the Red Sox win that game over Ubaldo Jimenez, but outside of that, he was just solid, and so was the rest of the team, so David Freese, 2011. How many times do I gotta talk about those damn 2011 Cardinals? This one is gonna go in most valuable MVP for me, because when you think of postseason performers in the 21st century, you think of David Freese on the batting side and you think of Madison Bumgarner on the bump. It's just that obvious. Freese might have not led his team in hits or home runs or even extra base hits, but his hits were the most impactful, and that's obvious. Look at the WPA leaderboard, man. Look how many times David Freese pops up in the top 6 here. Half of them are him. Obviously, the game-tying triple, the walk-off home run in that same game, and even Game 7, he gives them a key hit when they're down 2-0 to tie the game. Maybe the Cardinals would have been fine in a 5-game series, but in Game 6 and Game 7, they lose this World Series without David Freese, who basically just put the whole team on his back. He is my most valuable MVP on the hitting side. Josh Beckett in 03, this one's going to go and they lose the World Series without him, because boy, oh boy, just a couple of really clutch performances by him on the mound. Beckett pitches an absurd 16 1/3 innings with 2 earned runs allowed, obviously highlighted by the complete game shutout he throws in Game 6 to win the whole series. The Marlins might have gone back to Yankee Stadium up 3-2 and maybe folded without Josh Beckett performing the way he did in Game 6. That was a really tough place to play in for such a young team that was lacking identity. If Josh Beckett goes out there and lays an egg, they probably lose that game, and if I had to make a bet, I think they would lose the next game too. So I'm going to say the Marlins would lose the World Series without Josh Beckett's performance. Steve Pearce in 2018 would be better with a close series. I was pondering the second tier because Steve Pearce was incredibly clutch in this series. He is definitely the oddest name on this tier list. Most of these guys are household names or just great players, but he fully earned the honors in the series. Pearce went 4 for 12 in the series, which doesn't sound great until you hear that he had 3 home runs and 8 RBIs to go along with that, 4 walks to no strikeouts. In a lineup that already featured Andrew Benintendi, Mookie Betts, JD Martinez, Xander Bogaerts, Rafael Devers, just to name a few. Pearce hit the game-tying home run in Game 4, a game that the Red Sox eventually came back and won. And then in Game 5, he didn't even let the Dodgers get the series back to LA when he hit a 2-run homer off Clayton Kershaw and then added another solo shot late in the game to put it away. So he really came up later in the series to come up and win this World Series MVP, but I think it's earned. And I think he could have been even better had they gone back to Fenway for Game 6 and Game 7, and he could have had some big moments at home too. So I think it would have been better with a close series. Jeremy Pena in 2022, I'm between these two. I think I'm going to go with would be better if your team wasn't so good. Pena was fantastic in the series, going 10 for 25 for a 400 batting clip, but the Astros were just kind of doing their thing, man. Kyle Tucker had 2 home runs and an 800 OPS. Of course, Yuli Gurriel and Jose Altuve hit over 300, and even Alex Bregman added in a big home run too. Pena's clutchest moment definitely was his Game 5 home run to put the Astros ahead. They needed more runs after that to win the game, but he was the one that broke the ice in the 4th inning. But yeah, when I think back to the 2022 World Series, I don't really think of like a lot that Jeremy Pena did in the series besides great defense and just consistent hitting. Someone's got to win the MVP, right? I guess it'll be Jeremy Pena. I think I'm going to leave it here though. I think there's going to be no changes on this one. Let me know if you disagree in the comments down below, because you guys are really good at letting me know that you disagree with me, and I appreciate that, but please, I have a family, man. I got kids to feed. I don't have kids to feed. I just lied about that. But thank you for watching. Make sure you leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to the Jolly Olive channel. I will see you guys next time.